ADHD is a term we're all familiar with, but most of the time we picture a young boy having a hard time being confined to a chair in a classroom. Today on The Grit Show, we get to meet with Danielle, the original ADHD coach, who will help broaden our view and perspective on ADHD and the fact it isn't just about hyperactivity, especially in women. Join us to learn how recognizing neurodivergence can transform it from a hurdle into a superpower, especially with the right tools, which we will discuss. From financial management to the struggle to get a diagnosis and support, to simply trying to organize your day, we touch on a lot. Whether you're navigating an ADHD diagnosis yourself, supporting someone who is, or simply curious, join us as we offer insights, practical tips, and a whole lot of encouragement. I'm so glad you're here today. Welcome to The Grit Show, where our focus is growth on purpose. I'm your host, Shawna Rodrigues, and I'm honored to be part of this community as we journey together with our grit intact to learn more about how to thrive and how to get the most out of life. It means a lot that you are here today. As you listen, I encourage you to think of who may appreciate the tidbits of knowledge we are sharing and to take a moment to pass this along to them. Everyone appreciates a friend that thinks of them, and these conversations are meant to be shared and to spark even more connections. Danielle understands the science of how our brains work because she wasn't going to let ADHD run her life and hold her back from being remarkable. She continues to train and certify in new protocols for the ADHD brain so that she can offer her clients the best support possible as science catches up to coaching. She has multiple certifications and has been an ADHD coach for over 25 years. She has worked with over 1,500 ADHD, ASD, and divergent brains between the ages of 10 to 70. We have her full bio in the show notes so you can learn a little bit more about her. She even has a podcast and she has a great community you'll also learn about. But I am so excited for our conversation. Thank you so much for being here today, Danielle.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to talk more with you.
Yeah.
Because we've talked for quite a while before you even started the recording. So
I know Danielle is full of wisdom, and her and I just couldn't stop chatting about all the beautiful things that she knows. So I'm excited for us to bring it to everyone that is listening today so that you guys can get a little bit more of this knowledge, because ADHD, I think everyone knows someone, even if they aren't struggling with them themselves. And I think a lot of our listeners and people listening to this episode probably have a lot they want to learn about this today. So I'm very excited for you to be here. What is the biggest thing that you see your clients and individuals with ADHD struggling with and trying to navigate right now?
they're overwhelmed, they're exhausted, they're burnt out or quickly hitting burnout, and they don't know how to not do everything.
Yeah, I'm sure some of our listeners are like, that sounds like me too. Yes, yes, that makes really good sense. But that's what you're seeing a lot with your clients, right?
Yeah, well, and that's where clients always come to us. They're overwhelmed, they're exhausted, they have so many things to do that they can't get anything done some days, or they're doing a million things, but they never seem to finish or actually complete anything, or like there's a 9,000 varieties. And then they have kids that they're supposed to be adulting and taking care of. And then they have a spouse, and then they have the job or their business. And there's just all of these things. There's too much. And they don't know how to navigate asking for the correct kind of help.
Asking for and then finding, like those are two big things. So what is your first step when somebody comes to you that has that presentation?
First, let's breathe.
Start with the basics.
Start with the real basics. And why do I start with breathing? Because one, good oxygen levels will decrease your overwhelm and your frustration and your agitation. So let's breathe first. And if you have a neurodivergent brain or an exhausted mom brain, then you're holding your breath a lot, you're tense, you're frustrated, you're like literally balled up in a ball, and all your muscles are. By teaching a client to breathe properly and learn how to stop and recognize that they need to take deep breaths and relax the muscles across their back and their shoulders, it decreases everybody's overwhelm by a minimum of 10%, like that.
That's amazing. So we can start with just the simple basics that works for everyone, including especially somebody who has ADHD. And I'm pretty sure that that's such a common term. I feel like most people know what ADHD stands for, but it stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And it's been more recently shortened to just ADD, correct? Because they've kind of taken the hyperactivity out of it. Or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to tell you that the name is wrong. Unless you are a 5-year-old little boy who can't sit still in your seat, ADHD is not right. Because hyperactivity, everybody pictures that 5-year-old little boy in the back of the class who's the class clown and sitting upside down in his chair and throwing things. That's who everybody pictures when you hear the word hyperactivity. And that's not true, especially with women. Women, we tend to be very overly involved and overly connected with every single sensation, noise, thing that we have to do, all of the thoughts in our head, which are various and huge and constant and crazy and chaotic. I think I hit all of them. And it's not, that's what we are, especially as women. We are chaotic. Our brains do 900,000 more steps a day than the rest of our body does. And our body is exhausted because of it.
Yes. Which leads to the burnout, right? Mm-hmm. They all go hand in hand. And so sometimes having all those letters spelled out is more of a misnomer and has people feel like it doesn't apply to them and not understand where the connections are with it.
Well, and it comes into getting diagnosed properly too.
Yes.
Unfortunately, and we were talking about this earlier before we started recording, doctors, they don't understand how to actually diagnose ADHD. They're looking at this old, and when I say old, 40 to 50-year-old diagnostic criteria that no longer is true. And honestly wasn't true then, which is why so many of us women are getting late diagnosed because they missed. They tested 5-year-old little boys and decided what the diagnostic criteria was for a hyperactive 5-year-old little boy. They weren't looking at that highly anxious, overachieving, extremely intelligent little girl who was in the gifted program in the back of the room and going, oh, she's ADHD too.
Yes. And that's like an entire generation of women that was missed. And we have a lot of medical providers, which was a lot of the conversation that Danielle and I had beforehand, was my journey to my diagnosis and continued struggles with getting treatment and support around my diagnosis, because I was only diagnosed a couple of years ago. And I was diagnosed and then they took away my diagnosis because they made me go through a different gauntlet to be diagnosed. And for me, one of the challenges of it is I see in other family members that I have that are also adults and recognize that it was so hard for me to get diagnosed, and like my ability to go through that process, like I just wanted to throw down and say, forget it. I don't need this diagnosis. And they would even say to me like, well, what are you going to do if you don't get this diagnosis? I'm like, it's not about the diagnosis. It's about, I had the diagnosis and I had a treatment and it worked. Things aren't working. So find a different diagnosis or find a different way to treat and make things work. Like, are you caring? Are you like my medical community caring about me? Or are you just trying to patronize me? Because right now that's all you're doing, which they then put in the notes about how difficult I was.
Oppositional defiant disorder. No,
yes, that's
ADHD. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so how hard it was for me to get that diagnosis. And I did do the gauntlet and did their tests that were meant for males of a certain age, like whatever else. I had to have proof from my childhood to show that I would be seen as that. And luckily I had, what was it? I did have issues with my driver's license and stuff when I was young enough that would qualify in certain categories. Like it was so interesting, like what you had to qualify on. And I still don't understand because obviously it's behind the curtain of what actually qualified me to be seen. And I barely qualified. They made sure I knew that I barely qualified. But like, what does it matter? That was like their ego to be like, the reason we questioned you so much is because you barely qualified.
Those not on the podcast watching this, I would roll my eyes. If I rolled my eyes any harder, they might fall on my head because I hear this so much often working with women. I mean, they're treated like drug-seeking addicts.
Yes.
And did you know someone on ADHD medication is less likely to be taking drugs? Not more likely. And there's some new studies out there that are saying 80 to 90% of drug addicts are ADHD or neurodivergent, and they're doing this to self-medicate.
Yes, I believe that 100%. I believe that 100%.
Give them their medication. Make it easy. Remove the barriers. And unfortunately, they're just adding barriers day by day to those of us that need the medication, and especially if you're a female.
Yes, judgment and shame and when you go to talk to them, like, oh, you just saw some video, you just heard something, and you just think you're this. And like I said to them, I said, I don't care what you call this. I just know that when I was diagnosed and when I did receive treatment, I was doing much better. And currently I'm not functioning. And I would send like the notes of like, this is all the things that are happening, like now that I'm whatever else. So let's do something. And they just weren't doing anything. But it's interesting how little that they see that. And yeah, they make you the problem. And it sets you up. Like you have challenges seeking supports and seeking help. Like you said, like it's hard for people to be seeking help when they've treated that way, when they have tried to seek help.
Yeah, it is. And so the second thing that I talk to everyone that I work with is how can we support you to overcome all of the barriers put in your way for if you're in the process of getting diagnosed, if you have to get medical refill, your medicine refills, all of those things, because all of them are very difficult when you're on the spectrum, ND spectrum, neurodivergent spectrum. Every executive functioning skills, making doctor's appointments, time management, planning, remembering that, oh my gosh, I have to refill this and I'm supposed to do it 30 days ahead. And, whatever that is, whatever those processes, an executive function process. So how can I, as your coach, support you in those processes? And often it's learning to staff your executive dysfunction. And staffing executive dysfunction can be as simple as I never get my floors vacuumed and my floors are disgusting. Buy robot vacuum and map that out. You'll get a dopamine hit buying it. You'll get a dopamine hit programming it and following it around. Put eyes on it, put eyelashes on it, find your stickers, do whatever you want to it, and then never worry about it again.
Yes. So find those things.
That is staffing your executive dysfunction. Order your groceries and have them delivered to your house. Hire a VA to order your groceries and have them come to your house. Like, how can you do these things? And before anybody has a fit, they're like, I can't afford those things. You would be surprised. You don't order your groceries and you have to go out and order dinner. You probably pay for 1 hour of a VA to help you meal plan, order your groceries and get them to your house. You probably would pay less for a VA to do that, or your coach. This is one of those things that I offer as a coach. I will do some of those things. Well, I will have my VA do some of those things for you because I also don't do those things. But it's cheaper to hire me to do that than to order takeout twice a week.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is doing the math even to figure out where those things are happening is something you don't have
executive function skills for. And we often don't see it. I mean, I do this for a living and I have a coach because I don't see that in my own life at all. And that's normal, whether you're neurodivergent or not, to see the gaps in your life.
Yes.
Things that could be easier. We get stuck in our own habits and systems and stuff like that. And we don't realize that there are easier ways to make life happen.
I think that applies to
everybody,
all humans, right? Like people don't realize the values of a coach or a therapist, depending on where you're at and what you need. They don't realize that the value is that you aren't meant to be able to see everything about yourself. You can hold up a mirror, but you can't see everything. So yeah.
And I think as women, we've been sold a bill of goods that we're supposed to do all of these things. I mean, yes. I know that we have been sold the bill of goods. And we've also been sold the little tiny mice that are going to come into your house and clean it and stuff for you. Like, there's no in between. We were sold the fairy tale from Disney as young children. Don't get me started on the damage that does. And then we're sold this other very traditional way of having a family and a life and being a mom, or whether you're single or not.
Yeah.
That we're supposed to live as women, and all of it's wrong. None of it is correct, because we are supposed to live in a tribe with support for our weaknesses. And we as women are generally afraid to ask for that help.
And that is such a good point. Like if we go back to traditional ways of women's roles, traditionally, I would have a grandmother and a mother and a cousin and a sister, and one of them would be really good at cooking and one of them would like cleaning and one of them would be doing this part and I would be doing this part and they would be doing this part, and we would be like splitting the roles in ways that perhaps society and men didn't necessarily see. And I think that like I read The Red Tent like forever ago. And I think I loved that about The Red Tent, of part of that scene, like how that actually worked when it was a very oppressive society still, and things about I didn't like, but understanding that there was this element of this sisterhood and womanhood that we don't have in our current culture, as well as still having these expectations.
I think something that is really hard to get women to accept and understand is there are parts of that traditional lifestyle. The Amish, we look at the Amish as modern women and go, that is oppressive and that is horrible. I have some Amish friends, and let me tell you, those women, for the most part, there are things that are bad and there are things that are, but you want to know what? I have the same thing. So we don't live a fairy tale life.
Yes.
Compared to them.
Yes.
They have their community. One woman bakes all of the bread for their whole entire community every week. Another woman does all of the roasts for the week. Somebody else only raises chickens and does the eggs. Somebody else raises all the peaches and does all of the canning for the peaches. Somebody else, like, they divide and conquer.
Yes.
And I have had an Amish client, and yes, they do hire coaches and stuff, believe it or not. The things that they struggle with are not executive function things at all, because that is built into the very core of their lifestyle is there aren't executive function problems. Now, I take that to somebody who has a full-time job or has a business, which is more than a full-time job. And anybody that tells you being an entrepreneur is all about freedom and easy is bullshitting you.
Danielle, stop for a minute. Can we clap? Can we clap? Because as somebody who is an entrepreneur, who works with entrepreneurs and podcasters and everything else, like, I do understand that there is like an element and a place where things have flow and you can kind of have this ability to design your life. And there's this goal to do that. But it is hard being an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of elements to it. And I just think we need to have that balance of understanding, like, you can get to that point. There are elements at that point that you can build into it, but it is hard. And so I think that people need to have that perspective as well and understanding too.
So I work with ADHD entrepreneurs. I have a whole entire group of them. And I tell them somebody sold me the 6-figure business owner lie. All of the time I tell them, I'm like, my taxes. Every 90 days, I have to do taxes. When I didn't earn this much, I could do them once a year and it was fine and it was easy. And I could do that 1040 easy form thingy. Now it takes me like 20 hours every 90 days to do my taxes. Who said this was easy? And no, I don't have a Ferrari and I don't sit on a beach working from my laptop. I wish I could, but there's not enough time in the day for that. So I joke about that, but we've been sold that even in the working, if you have an outside corporate job and working for somebody else, we've been sold that there's this lifestyle that we're supposed to live. So we're always feeling shame and frustration and anxiety and burning out and overwhelm that we haven't reached it.
Well, I think that shame and frustration, because even as you were talking, because I have a lovely person I finally found. It took a while to find a person that comes twice a month approximately to clean our house. And part of it is because I have ADHD and I'm trying to run a business and I only have so much capacity. And that's one thing that needs to go. Otherwise, I'm feeling guilty all the time about the condition of my house and that I don't have the energy and the time left to take care of it. But also because I love my partner to death, but his standards on things aren't the same as mine. And he does help out, but like to that extent, it still falls a lot on me. And I think a lot of women, that's the case. Even we do have helpful partners. He does cook. He does a lot of other things, but it's just so much easier.
There's usually more mental exhaustion that women feel over those things. Even if you do have, and I have to say, I'm very blessed. I have an amazing partner. My husband, we've been married 30 years, and he will chip in and do anything, but I always have to ask and I have to remind him and I have to tell him to do it. And I have to give him the direction on how to do it. So it's my mental fatigue that goes into, I can ask him to do anything and he will always do it.
Yes. Yes.
That is not the thing, but my mental fatigue is still there.
Yeah. And I just have to send a note and schedule, and she takes care of it and does a great job. And it's one less thing that I have to take care of. And I love that. And it's wonderful. And it's such a gift to me that that's something that is done. And it's so interesting because we had friends that came to visit and I didn't want to say and watch myself saying that they just came and they just cleaned. And I'm so glad I have somebody to clean, because I feel guilty that I'm not taking care of my house and I'm not cleaning my house and I'm not doing this. And we don't have like extensive amounts of money. It really is like a stretch to make that happen. But what it does for my mental well-being and everything else that we have that's just checked off the list, that is something not to worry about, that I don't have to figure out and ask for help with or take care of or whatever else, that happens twice a month. And it's very cute because I was out of town before she came this last time, and he did the because it does take like 2 hours of work before she comes to like get things cleared off and get things cleaned up so she can clean. But there's this guilt and shame that I have somebody that comes to clean my house instead of me being able to say like, I am so fortunate and I prioritize this and this is such a gift for me. And I'm so glad that I have this and so grateful that I have this, that there's this guilt and shame that even when we have something that really helps us with, because we have ADHD or not, that we have the supports that we need, that we find this is something I need and I'm going to make this happen for me. That instead we have this level of guilt and shame because we're supposed to do it all and we're supposed to take care of everything.
Well, and we're supposed to know how to do it all. And we're supposed to do it right and perfect every single time. And that's BS.
Mm-hmm.
And going through that process and teaching women and even some of my male clients too, women, it's a longer process, that having support and having help empowers you to be a better version of yourself. And our group program is called ADHD Upgrade Academy, because you can upgrade your ADHD, and ADHD can be a superpower if you have the right scaffolding and support around yourself.
Yes.
So one of the best illustrations I have for this, and I'm going to show Shawna, excuse me, what I'm talking about, but I'll explain this to you. So Iron Man, and I have Iron Man and Captain America on my desk, and the Hulk all have superpowers. They are superheroes. But I will tell you, Iron Man is he is also neurodivergent and ADHD. There's absolutely zero doubt that Iron Man is ADHD. Because nobody gets that intelligent without neurodivergence.
Yes.
So I want you to hear what I just said. Nobody is that intelligent without neurodivergence. Neurodivergence is the superpower when you learn to support yourself.
Yes.
Tony Stark on his own is just a guy. He's not going to do nothing. When he puts this support system of a suit around himself, he becomes a superhero.
Yes.
When you're ADHD, you're just ADHD. Without support system, you're just ADHD, which means chaos and annoying. And Pepper Potts wants to kill him at all times because he's obnoxious and annoying and all of the things.
Yes.
When he puts that suit on,
yes,
and he has the scaffolding and the support system around every single area of his body,
yes,
he becomes a superhero.
No, that's such a valuable way to look at it. Yes, exactly.
So when you're ADHD, when you have support, it can become your superpower. Is it a superpower every single moment of the day? No. I just said I have a coach and I have the support systems I need, and I still have chaos. I was cleaning up my chaos before we got on here just because I had junk everywhere because I was journaling earlier. And we aren't perfect. Don't be perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect is boring. Perfect is disgusting. Perfect breeds discontent.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Imperfection and acceptance breeds growth and understanding.
Imperfection and acceptance. I like that.
Because if you can't accept your imperfect pieces, you can't accept the good things in your life either.
Yeah.
We don't see the good things when we're not accepting the imperfection.
I love that. And I think Iron Man is such a unique way of looking at that and seeing that there's two sides to every coin. There's like the other pieces. You need to make sure that you're flipping it and seeing the good pieces and looking at that.
You have to see the good pieces, and you have to find the right support system for you. When Tony first started and he was falling over and breaking things in his shop and all of that because he hadn't found the right system to put around himself to make him into Superman.
Yes.
And into Iron Man and into whatever it was he was looking to be. And if we don't do that for ourselves, we're never going to reach our full success.
Yes. Yeah. We had a great conversation, episode 17 of the Grit Show with David Rundell, who talks about like flaunting your weakness, like building up what other people see ADHD as a weakness, and it's not. It is your superpower, and you need to find the way to build on that and to get the support system, which I think is a key way of looking at to make it so it can be all that it needs to be.
Because when you are well supported, you can do anything. And women who are well supported, the women that are well supported are multi-billionaires. The moms who post on Pinterest and everything's beautiful are the wives who always have everything put together. None of those people
yes
do that by themselves.
Yeah. And I And I think we live in a society that tries to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, do it on your own. And really, when you look around and even when you think about yourself and the things that you've accomplished, if you pause long enough, you can look at the people and the things that made that possible. And we get so focused in our society about you doing it on your own. You don't have to realize, like, I couldn't have done this without this magical opportunity that came to me and this person that cheered me on and these people that did these other pieces to make it happen. And we don't put enough focus on the communities and the individuals that are the supports that make that happen. And I think we need to do more of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I was an OBM and had an agency and did that for a long time. I got to see
Pause. What is an OBM?
Online business manager.
Thank you.
So I was an OBM to a few 7+ figure coaches, big $50,000, $20,000 packages and all of that. And I quit working for them because they were telling everybody, this is what you can do. You can do this. You can do this on your own. You can do this. There were 25 of us in the background doing all of the actual work so she could go sit on a beach and do nothing. And that was more than one of them. So just, I had 7 of them at one point. But Elon Musk has an assistant that does 90% of his stuff, including making sure his laundry gets done. And I know his assistant. So I know this to be true. And I know a couple other multi-million-dollar couples, and their whole entire household is run by 50 other people, not them.
Yes.
People who are successful have a tribe.
Yes.
They have a tribe, and each piece of their tribe is extremely amazing at the one thing that they do. That's all they do. You hire the expert in this, and you hire the expert in that, and you hire the expert in this, and you hire the next expert. You don't do all of those things yourself.
Yes. So valuing doing things independently is something you need to be able to diverge yourself from so that you can find the resources and find the connections to have the support to really be successful. And where do you think that starts? I mean, you have a community, which I'm sure is like a great place to start. But for the folks that are out there, like, where do they start?
Find somebody to start with and ask help. And it may not be your spouse. Not all of us, and I very well know not everyone is blessed to have a spouse that is able and or willing to be helpful. Find help. Do body doubling with your best friend. You and her get together and clean your house. Both of you together. Then you go over to her house and clean her house.
Yes. Find that reciprocity.
Find that. Like my community, we decided to offer something very low cost, $20 a month. And you can meet with ADHD coaches a minimum of twice a day and get unlimited body doubling via Zoom all day long, every single day. Because having a community and having a tribe that even if all we can do for you today is listen to you vent and say, oh my gosh, I understand. Oh my gosh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you done that? Have you thrown something and screamed bloody murder because you just need to let it all out today? And sometimes that's all you need to do. You just need to be seen, find a safe space, and be heard.
This is so interesting because I really thought most of our conversation would be very specific to ADHD and to that piece. And I feel like a lot of this, everyone listening is like, oh, I might need that too. Like that it might be like a higher level of need for individuals with ADHD, but that it really is like that this is stuff that everyone possibly needs, right?
Everybody needs this. Everybody needs it. Now, if you're neurodivergent, the pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is insurmountable most of the time. And I wish I could say that you could figure it out on your own. And maybe you can, but it's going to take you 20 times longer than it would a neurotypical person. Stop trying to do it by yourself and get the help you need. And I don't care whether you're neurodivergent or not. Get support because you need a safe space. You need to be seen as who you are without masking and trying to cover up the fact that you have a lot of anxiety today, or you're depressed today, or you haven't brushed your teeth today or taken a shower in 3 days, or your house is a disaster, or you forgot to pack lunch for your kid at school and now you're going to owe school the money for paying for the lunch, or you forgot to grocery shop again, so now you got to order from McDonald's again. All of these things. Every person has these moments, neurotypical, neurodivergent or not. But when you're neurodivergent, if you have a space, you can start to see success in your life instead of that shame spiral that constantly in and burnout.
Yes.
We go from burnout to burnout to burnout to burnout.
No, and the shame spiral is definitely a huge part of that. And so let's talk for a minute because you kind of touched on the financial piece. And that is like very much a symptom, a challenge, a component of ADHD that maybe doesn't get enough press and enough talk time and enough conversation because of the shame that comes with that, because finances are so important for our fiscal stability, our stability in life. So where do you start with that? And what are some tips and supports around that? Obviously, like how do you even start reaching out for help around that?
So, one, hire an ADHD coach who's also ADHD. Hire an ADHD coach who is willing to talk about their own issues with you. If you work with a coach who is that trying to look Instagram pretty at all times and sound like she has everything together, run as fast as you can, because no person, neurotypical or not, has everything together. There is share the shame along with the good. I share my story, and we had to declare bankruptcy at one point because I destroyed our finances. We almost lost our home. No, we did lose our home eventually. It took a little while. We lost our car. We couldn't do anything because I was impulsive. Can I tell you what I spent the money on? No, I actually can't, because I would go out to eat. I would go do this. I would buy extra groceries. I would buy my son that cute outfit. I would whatever. It wasn't spent like I spent $50,000 on one thing and hid it for my husband. No, I spent $5 here, five, and I didn't know I was really doing it. I mean, I knew I was spending money, but I didn't understand the impact of that.
Yeah.
And this is male and female. Both my male and female clients have this. Impulsive spending, not a good grasp on executive function skills for planning and processing and planning out when these bills are due and when those bills are due. So you bounce checks constantly, or overdraft funds, or you forget to buy groceries. So therefore you're eating out for the 10th time this week. And before you know it, you've spent $300 on takeout this week. And now your budget for groceries is completely gone, where you could have spent $100 on groceries and had $200 left over to go out for a meal, go to a movie, put gas in your car. Running out of gas because you're not paying attention.
That happened so much when I was a teenager. It's so funny because like the more like all the cute quirks about me when I was younger, like the running out of gas, I once added something into my checkbook and so subtracted it and bounced stuff when I was younger and stuff too. And all these things that I was younger, like that now that I'm learning more, I was like, wow, like that all makes sense now that I learned more. But it's so funny that it wasn't even until the last few years that I've even thought about it.
It all made sense. Yeah. And so when I work with a client, we work on executive functioning skills first to get the groceries ordered, to make sure that you're planning for sending money to school for the field trip for your child, so that we've got the time management and planning piece under control, because that's going to solve 90% of your financial issues. Number two is understanding where you can save money, where you can bring money in for yourself as an adult. There are ways you can save money. Again, spending $200 and $300 on takeout this week, you could have spent $100 on groceries and ate better. You would have felt better. You would have had less problems with your ADHD by eating better. And you would have saved yourself a couple $100.
The part of it is that reflective time with the coach to be able to look at those things and turn them over and come up with solutions for them. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And everybody has different solutions. I have one client that we have built, and I hate this because I know how to do this, but it's gross and disgusting. And I hate the thought of this. We have built the most complicated spreadsheet known to man, and she loves it and she uses it every day. And she keeps track of everything now. I have another client that we use the Mint app. I have another client that she just has email reminders that go to herself twice a week to check her checking account and make sure things have gone out and she's paid the bill, and she has everything on her Google Calendar. It's finding what works for you and how your brain works and how your chaos works. And for me, like, to study, I'm back in school to get my PhD, and I have to study. One of my professors the other day, I'm taking notes and all of that. And we have to prove, because we're remote, so we have to record that we're taking notes on the lectures and all of that stuff, because we're not trusted.
You're not an adult. I don't know.
I don't know.
You're not paying for your schooling, apparently. It's not,
a lot of money.
Yes.
So I'm doing my notes and stuff, and I'm doing them by making cute little flaps and writing them and taping them in my textbook and doing all of the things. And they're all color coded and they have stickers on them. And the response I get, because it's pass fail, we have to prove that we're doing. And he's like, "Are you ADHD?" Yes, I am. But ask me anything about everything that I wrote down, what color it's on, what it looks like, and I can regurgitate that information to you in a second, because I know how my brain works and I catered my learning and everything around that. The same thing with everyday life. That pretty planner that you saw at Target is not going to solve your disorganization.
Yes. Well, one of my curiosities, because I am the queen of coming up with systems, I am not the queen of following through on those systems. And I'm curious if that's a thing.
That is absolutely a thing. I have 50 systems for every single thing I do. I have no less than 20 planners in my house at any certain time. My keys, and I have a process that has to be followed for buying a planner. One, I have to love how it feels, I have to love how it smells, and I have to love the color. If I don't, I will never use it. Two, it must be undated.
Ooh, that's smart, because I have a bunch of them. I have like 4 for 2024, and they're all going to get thrown out, and there's some in one and some in a different one and some in a different one. So,
and over the years, I mean, I have right on my desk, I have 2 planners on my desk. They're undated. But my favorite, the thing that I come back to the most often is doing bullet journaling, because I can put stickers in here. I can color. I can use Post-it notes, things like that. And I like this, and it's become my second brain. So I now have mostly just one system that I use, though I do test new types of planners that come out all the time for my clients.
How do you make a system stick? Like for me, like that's the biggest challenge, is making a system stick. Like I'm great at coming up with them.
I have a framework that I follow every single day. The system that I use can change 9,000 times. I could be only using the whiteboard behind me. I could be using my planner. I could be just using Post-it notes. I could be doing Google or using Artful Agenda or whatever it is that works for me today in my brain chaos. So what works for me today? The framework is every morning I brain dump everything out of my head. Where I brain dump that's whatever feels good today.
Okay.
2, I schedule out and I write down what is expected of me for the day. If I don't write it down, it's never going to happen. I've learned I have to handwrite things.
Yes.
Some days it's handwriting on paper. Other days it's handwriting on my iPad.
Yes.
I handwrite things.
Yes.
Number 3, I check it once an hour to make sure I'm staying on track.
Ooh.
I have 5 minutes scheduled every hour to make sure I'm staying on track throughout the day. And that's scheduled, and I have a reminder for that, and it's on my calendar, so no clients can book over it or anything like that.
Nice. That makes sense.
And number 4, I evaluate how I did at the end of the day. Did this work well for me today? Why didn't it work good today? Oh, I was too tired. I was too chaotic. I was too whatever. So that I can find my patterns. What's my pattern right now?
Yes.
And I will tell you, by doing that, I could tell you when I'm going to get my period. Just by how I'm planning for the day. Because I know what my patterns are now. Yeah. And like I said, I mostly use a bullet journal, and some days I handwrite everything and do stickers and all kinds of things. Other days I just stick a Post-it note in there that already has everything all framed out and done for me. How I do it is very different, but I found that this is the system that tends to work the best for me.
Those Post-it notes are fun. Where did you get those Post-it notes? You guys can't see them, but they're very like detailed. It's kind of fun. You can just stick them in your bullet journal.
They say for today, and they've got your morning, so you can put your times, like appointments in it, and your top 3 and your to-do, and then a little note section. They're noted by Post-it notes.
I like that, just because the fact that like I like bullet journals, but sometimes I need more of a structure, and it's too much time to redo the structure all the time with a bullet journal. And again, time is something we run out of sometimes, and we feel overwhelmed and burnout. Were those the words we were using? So yes.
But on Amazon, they have like little notebooks that are meeting notes and things like that. And I just will tape them into my bullet journal.
Oh, that's an option too. I love Post-it notes. I love Post-it notes, though. Don't you love Post-it notes?
Me too. Well, I use Post-it note glue a lot. I make my own Post-it notes. And you can buy those little cute pads, the little notepads of the cute daily planners and stuff like that, and reuse them and still use the bullet journal system so that everything's contained in one place by having whatever kind of paper I want today in there. And I can just tape it in or glue it in.
I like that idea. I've never even heard of Post-it note glue. I'm gonna be like playing on Amazon, and I might have to put some stuff in the show notes for y'all so that you guys can.
It's by Scotch. It's called It's repositional glue stick.
Repositional glue stick. Oh my gosh, I'm learning all sorts of things I didn't expect I'd learn today, Danielle. This is exciting. Repositional glue stick. Okay, I'm writing this down.
And you can also get like the glue tape, which is double-sided sticky tape, to put them in there too. But they're not repositional after a little while. It's stuck. But I think they make a repositional version of it. But
that's fun.
Whatever. If you're going to stick it in there and you don't need to take it out again, it doesn't matter what you use.
I like this idea because I do like having my own like bullet type journal, but I would get completely distracted with making that pretty and doing that. And I would spend half of my day on that instead of doing all the things I need to get done. So it would be nice to have like when I need that creative juice time and flow time to be able to make it fun and pretty, but then just have something I can just put in there. When I need stuff to just put in there. So I like that flexibility.
Yeah, and there are days I do that. And I actually, nobody will see it because I'm not going to get up, but I actually have a whole cart, 3-tiered rolling cart full of happy planner stickers and stuff like that. And some days I will spend an hour, if I have the time and I can, to plan out my whole entire week and design a pretty layout for the whole week to use and all of that, if that's how I feel today.
Well, and I think that's an element. So this is a good time for us to actually start moving into that self-care piece, that self-maintenance piece. I feel like getting in that creative zone and doing that in a creative way like that is a useful thing. So I like to have it so it can be either go back and forth and do those. So I want us to get into self-care, self-maintenance conversation. But before we do that, is there anything that you feel like we haven't touched on, we haven't covered that you want to be able to touch on with ADHD and this conversation to make sure our audience learns about and hears about?
You're going to continue to struggle until you get help. Help does not need to be super expensive. I know coaches charge like $450 a month, $550 a month, $650 a month, but you don't have to spend that much on a coach. Even if I'm not who you would want to work for or with or whatever, message me. I will help you find the right coach. I have a huge network of ADHD coach friends and ADHD coach friends and trauma coach friends to help refer you to. I just want to see people get the right help, because hiring a regular life coach is not a good idea when you're neurodivergent. Just don't.
And they will understand why it's not working. Yes.
Well, I have a client right now who just started with me who was afraid to hire me because the last coach she worked with made her feel so ashamed for not being able to take action on what she was teaching her and doing things her way. She had a very strategic way that you have to do things that coach's way. And she ended up with so much shame and trauma from working with a coach. And I hear that story often. There's no reason for that. Find your right fit.
Yes. Yes. And I do say that to folks all the time, that when it comes to finding help, that there is that element that it might take more than once and you need to find the right fit, like for everyone, including, and especially it sounds like folks with ADHD. And can you just tell us that the AUD acronym as well, so that we make sure folks know what that stands for?
AUD is ADHD upgrade, or AUD.
Is that autism
Is that ADHD? Sorry, ADHD is autism and ADHD together. I am autistic and ADHD. I'm actually fairly severely autistic. Obviously, I've learned I was nonverbal as a child.
Really?
And of course, I didn't get diagnosed with autism until I got my son diagnosed with autism and went, oh, this is me.
That's amazing. Yes, because a lot of people like the communication piece, obviously you're a very strong communicator as an adult, that you had that challenge as a child. And that's something that you've worked with and done some amazing things with, but people just feel like it's just the communication piece with it and they don't see the other pieces that are part of it. Isn't it fascinating? The diagnoses and understanding the different angles of them and people trying to see themselves in them. And we don't always know how they fit and how to understand that.
So for me, it was my diagnosis journey was I got diagnosed as ADHD as a child. Well, actually, my first diagnosis was mentally retarded as a child.
Really?
They just stuck me in the back of the room and didn't bother because I couldn't sit still. I couldn't learn. I wasn't verbal. I couldn't read. I couldn't write, all of these things. I became verbal at 8 and started to read at age 8 when my little brother started to read, who was 4 years younger than me. So he was 4 when he started to read it. And I picked up from this program, because he's profoundly deaf, that they were doing with him, because I would sit in the back of the room when he went to services every day, and I learned to read because he was learning to read. And I learned to speak because my profoundly deaf brother was learning to speak. Those same processes taught me. But I was 9 before somebody realized that I was just ADHD. Just ADHD. And I had the one teacher and all that. But I was still 12 before I worked at grade level and all of those things. And I had the one teacher who helped me. So when you're ADHD, autistic, I had some learning disabilities, or so they thought. But what we didn't realize is I had suffered I was in a bad car accident when I was 2 years old. I also had a traumatic brain injury. And of course, we didn't know that until they did brain scans as I was older and things. But I had that ADHD, autism, TBI overlap. And you look at all of that, and there's so much that overlaps with all that. So nobody knew what to do with me.
Yes, but the moral to that story for me is that you got more help. And the help that your brother was getting when he got more targeted help, and you were getting it almost like by osmosis, practically, standing in the back of the room, right? That when there was more targeted supports, that you improved. And so sometimes like the exact diagnosis is sometimes less important than having
the right kind of help.
Yes.
It always comes to the right kind of help.
Yes. And the teacher, the teacher that was actually gonna care and support and give you what you needed. And that made the big difference. Yeah. One of my siblings, and I do believe they have the ADHD diagnosis. I think 2 of my siblings had it, but I didn't know they did till they were later. And obviously I didn't until much, much later. But one of them was diagnosed, and I forget, it was dyslexic. He was diagnosed as dyslexic in the 2nd grade. And like 75% of his class was diagnosed with that. And he was in the 2nd grade, and it was probably ADHD and that as well, possibly as well. But it's so interesting how like it's so hard to get those things figured out sometimes. And really, it can be less important exactly what it is and more important that these supports are what matter.
Learning how your brain works. Learning, who cares why it works the way it works? How does your brain work? So how can somebody support you and give you the help you need?
Yes, exactly. And learning that you do need additional supports. And those are things that are helpful. And that's like when they were trying to, when I was going through the diagnostic process, and they were being oppositional and telling me, you might not have this. How are you going to feel when this isn't the diagnosis? What are you going to do when I'm like, I don't care. I'm not attached to diagnosis. I'm attached to getting better and fully functioning in my life. And I thought you were supposed to be a component to help that.
I thought you were supposed to help me. Yeah.
I thought this is why I'm spending all this time and putting this effort, because I was told the gatekeepers are making it so I can't get support. So I go through these hurdles, and you're part of those hurdles. So let's just get through these hurdles, and hopefully you can be helpful. Maybe, maybe not. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how that works. So again, going back to the supports, that you finally got the supports even at those different ages and stages, again, pointing to your whole solution that you need to keep trying if you're not finding the right supports. And I love that you are offering yourself as a tool for folks to be able to make those connections.
Yeah.
So for individuals contacting you, do they need to have a diagnosis or a suspected diagnosis? Okay.
Absolutely not. I would say probably 20% of my clients aren't diagnosed. Sometimes we get them a diagnosis because they need medication or whatever, or it's important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. And I will help you with that process. But not everybody is. And you might just be an exhausted mom with littles.
Yeah.
You might be an exhausted manager at work and just not able to process because you've got home life and work life. And exhaustion and overwhelm can look like ADHD, even if it's not.
Yeah. There's a bunch of components. Yeah. But a lot of times ADHD can be diagnosed as depression or anxiety and all these other pieces, when really it's just ADHD, and the right supports will get you where you need to be.
Exactly.
So this has been so lovely. So what do you do? Our self-maintenance minute. And we call it self-maintenance because self-care is often has that lens of people thinking that it's something extra or something not important.
Go get your nails done or spend a lot of money on.
Yes.
No. So my self-care is I give myself a squirrel day.
Ooh.
Squirrel days for me could be scrapbooking. It could be cleaning my house. It could be scrapbooking, cleaning my house, listening to music, and watching a movie all at the same time. And it drives my husband insane because my husband is autistic and he likes things quiet. And music, a movie, and me running around doing things all at the same time drive my husband insane. But this is my squirrel day. I do what I want in my squirrel day. And I could be reading a book and watching TV and a movie and music and all of that at the same. What do I need to relax myself?
That is fabulous. Yes, I love my do nothing days and there's nothing scheduled. And it's because I'm going to do too much on my do nothing days potentially or nothing at all, but it's not having things I have to do.
So I do not come in my office. So a few years ago, I was working too much because I'm ADHD and I got stuck, and my husband put a lock on my office. I have a electronic lock, a code goes in the door, but I have to put that code in, and I'm terrible at remembering numbers. So I have to go figure out where the numbers are. And my husband keeps moving them and hiding them. So I have to ask him what the number for my door is some days. And this makes me really think about coming back in this office and working or doing anything on my weekends, because my squirrel days cannot include work.
Very important. Very important. It's good to have that. Nice.
They are just relaxed days. And sometimes I'm doing something to make future me happy, which is cleaning my house. Sometimes I'm cooking up a storm because that sounded good today to cook a ton. And I'm doing future me a favor. Other days I'm making a huge mess for future me, and future me is not going to be happy with me. But that's fine.
That works. I like it. So we have grit, wit is what we call it. But what is a takeaway you would like to give to our listeners today?
Ask for help. You can be Iron Man, Superman, whatever, with the right support around you. And whether you're diagnosed or not, or wherever you are in life, get support. Support does not have to be expensive. Support can be free. You have to take more physical action yourself if it's a free version of the support. But get support. Ask for help. Call your bestie. Clean each other's houses together.
Yes.
Get help.
Find that and make it happen. I love it. And for folks, you have a website and they can connect to your community through that website. What's the best way for folks to find you? Tell us.
ND Out Loud. N is in neuro, D is in divergent, out loud, because we are all about not being full of shame and frustration about our neurodivergence. We want you to learn to live out loud with it, as in love yourself. Live and love yourself out loud, because you don't need to hide and be shameful of whatever it is you're stuck with right now. So ND Out Loud, TikTok, Instagram, our website is ndoutloud.com. And our group program is really low cost. We've placed it at $19.99 a month. And we meet a minimum of twice a day with unlimited body doubling on Zoom. So you could literally be with me all day long if you wanted to. And we have a community that's not in social media, because, we get lost on social media and get sucked in, and we forget that we're supposed to be eating and brushing our teeth and things like that. So we have an outside community with its own app, so that you can come in, get what you need, and leave easily, because it's boring and there's not that much going on. But we meet on Zoom a minimum of twice a day to help you set intentions, accomplish intentions, and be safe, seen, and heard.
I love it. That is fabulous. And we will have all of that in the show notes. So don't worry if you didn't memorize it, although it is pretty easy to remember. That's all right there for you wherever you're listening to this. Thank you so much, Danielle. You are such a gift. What you're doing is so important. And I'm so grateful you joined us today so we could share this with everyone.
Thank you for having me, Shawna. I enjoyed being here with you.
I value the time we shared together today. Thank you for making time to be here and to continue taking steps towards growth and bringing more ease into your life. I'd love for us to stay connected on Instagram at Shawna Podcast or at the.grit.show. There's even a link in bio at the.grit.show where you can send me an email to let me know what you thought today's episode. Hearing from you helps to make the effort that goes into producing these episodes worthwhile. After all, you're why I'm here. And since it's been a while since you've heard this, you are the only one of you that this world has got. And that really does mean something. I hope you realize that. I'll be back again soon, and I hope you're following along or subscribed so that you'll know and be here too.